When Karen moved into the cottage across from my ranch, I expected maybe a few neighborly complaints.
What I didn't expect was for her to report me to the county, claiming I owned too much land. She said it wasn't fair that one person should have all that space.
But in trying to shrink my world, Karen forgot one thing. Boundaries exist for a reason. And she had crossed mine. Literally. What happened next made headlines in 3 counties. My name's Eli. I own a 200-acre ranch in a small Colorado town that's been in my family for 4 generations. It's not just my home, it's my legacy. I raise cattle, run seasonal hay rides, and teach kids about animals every summer. Simple life, hard work. Peaceful. Well, it was peaceful. Until Karen moved into the old rental cottage across the gravel road. A small fixer-upper that used to be owned by the Millers. It had sat vacant for years until she swooped in with her matching poodles, freshly painted porch, and enough HOA energy to suck the charm out of the prairie sky. The first time we met, she waved, then immediately asked me to stop waking her dogs with my morning tractor rides. Mind you, this is rural land. If you don't like tractors or cows mooing, you probably shouldn't live next to a working ranch. It only got worse from there. She began sending little notes taped to my fence posts. Your cows are too loud. Why are your barn lights on at night? Do you really need all that land? It looks like a private park. And then, one morning, I found her standing at the edge of my field, yelling at a ranch hand for riding the ATV too close to her side. We weren't even near her land. But here's where things flipped from annoying to ridiculous. A few weeks later, I got a knock at my door. A local county zoning officer holding a clipboard and looking uncomfortable. Sir, we received a complaint. A formal report was filed by a neighbor claiming you're exceeding allowed land use, possibly encroaching on public easement. I blinked. What? He gestured toward the south edge of my land. Your fences border the land behind her property. She believes some of your pasture crosses into her boundary. I knew that was impossible. My family purchased this entire stretch, legally, surveyed, deeded, and documented. But I stayed polite, showed him the land records, pulled out aerial maps, tax assessments, the works. It took all of 20 minutes for the officer to say, "You're completely in the clear. She doesn't have a case." I thought that would be the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. Karen didn't just file one complaint. She kept filing them to zoning, property tax boards, and even the county sheriff's office. She claimed my excessive landholding was causing environmental damage, lowering her property value, and was suspiciously large for a single owner. One email even accused me of hoarding acres. You can't make this stuff up. But then came the kicker. A few months later, I went out to the back pasture to check on a broken irrigation valve. As I crossed through the tall grass, I noticed something odd. A small garden gnome, followed by a full garden plot. Tomatoes, peppers, a white trellis. I kept walking and realized Karen had built a backyard extension. On my land. Her little shed, her chicken coop, her raised beds, all of it was 15 feet over the legal property line. She wasn't accusing me of land hoarding. She was squatting on my property while trying to turn me into the county. I was furious, but I knew better than to confront her directly. So I called in a licensed surveyor and had the boundary re-verified. Then I contacted the county assessor's office, supplied photographic evidence, and requested a formal enforcement of the encroachment. And then I called the sheriff. 3 days later, while Karen was watering her organic corner and arranging cute rocks around her fairy lights, 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled up. I stood at the edge of the property with a folder in hand and a GoPro recording everything. Sheriff Martinez walked right up to her and said, Ma'am, you're trespassing on private land. You've been formally served to vacate this portion within 48 hours or face criminal charges.
Karen lost it. I filed a complaint. He's the one with too much land. I was just balancing the grid. Balancing the what now? Didn't matter. The sheriff pulled out the documents, pointed to the satellite images, and explained that every inch she had used beyond her lot was owned by me. She shrieked. She threatened to sue. She called it land shaming. But in the end, the facts shut her down. She had to dismantle everything. Her shed, hauled away. The plants, dug up. The poodle trellis, snapped trying to pull it out. To make it extra official, the sheriff installed property line markers every 10 feet. And that wasn't all. She was slapped with a $3,000 trespassing fine, a misdemeanor offense on her record, and a county citation for illegal land development. And because I had documented every single interaction, from the notes to the boundary violations, she had no defense. I even emailed the zoning officer who came months ago. Remember when she accused me of crossing the line? Turns out, she did. His reply, "Oh, the irony. You can't make this stuff up." Exactly. The whole town found out, and Karen couldn't show her face again. After the sheriff forced her to remove everything from my land, most people would have backed off, maybe apologized, but not Karen. She didn't believe she was wrong. She believed the system was rigged against her. So what did she do? She tried to rally the HOA. Now, mind you, my property is outside HOA jurisdiction. My ranch isn't subject to any of their petty rules. But that didn't stop her from showing up to a town planning meeting demanding the HOA extend its governance boundary to include my land. She claimed my cows were an eyesore, my barn lights were pollution, and my fencing was psychologically damaging. Someone in the audience actually snorted out loud when she said that. Even the HOA president looked at her and said, "Ma'am, that's not how jurisdiction works. You can't just add someone's land to the HOA like an expansion pack." I sat quietly, enjoying every second. A few days later, I got a call from the local newspaper. Apparently, one of the reporters had been at that town hall. They'd heard rumblings about Karen's antics and wanted to do a piece on rural land disputes, with my permission.
I figured why not? I handed over the full story, the surveys, the complaints, the sheriff reports, even a photo of Karen's poodles next to a private property sign. The article came out titled, "When HOA Karen Picked the Wrong Cowboy." It went viral locally. Within a week, Karen became the town's cautionary tale. People laughed, shook their heads, and even showed up at my farm stand just to hear the gnome garden story. One neighbor brought me a mug that said, "Too much land? Try too much audacity." Another dropped off a novelty garden gnome, painted to look like Karen. And just when I thought things had cooled down, karma came knocking again. Karen's rental contract came up for renewal, and guess what? The property owner, Old Man Miller's grandson, saw the article, saw her name, saw the police report. He refused to renew her lease. Not only that, he politely asked her to leave within 30 days or he'd file for a formal eviction. And just like that, the woman who tried to accuse me of encroachment got evicted for trespassing and harassment. On her last day, I stood by the fence sipping my coffee. She didn't say a word. Just packed her last box into a U-Haul and peeled out down the gravel road. A month later, peace returned. No more strange complaints, no more surprise zoning checks, no more garden gnomes mysteriously migrating onto my property. Just me, my cattle, and the sound of wind through the fields. Sometimes I still get asked about the story at farmers markets or when tourists come by. People love the twist, the justice, the irony, and I always end the tale the same way. When someone tells you that you've got too much of something you've worked hard for, land, success, peace, just smile, because chances are they want to take a piece of it. And hey, if you enjoy epic HOA takedowns like this one and love watching justice served with a side of poetic irony, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you real, satisfying stories from people who stood their ground and won.